So, Ramses is one of the main villains of season 7 for Love is Blind, and I do think that we need to talk about it. Welcome everyone, welcome back to Themis and Thoth. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that. Let's talk about Ramses. Let's do that. Ramses is a college dropout who makes every excuse to explain why he did not finish. And this is not necessarily the main problem I have with him, but I want to be clear here. You don't need to go to college for success or to be worthy, right? You don't need to finish college to be good. College, uni, whatever you want to call it, might just not be for you. And that is okay, that is completely fine. If universities, formal education, they aren't for you, right? That's not for you. That's fine. The problem is when you feel this sense of shame. It is when you make your decision, the thing that you chose to do, the decision you make, when you make all kinds of excuses. The problem is when you obviously feel small, so you have a tendency to make everyone around you also feel small. That's what Ramses did from my perspective. The externalizing of your emotional turmoil around your perceived failure is a fundamental problem. It is a problem. It is a you problem. Let me get into this. You should keep it, your problems, to yourself and stop making everyone else around you feel like they need to carry the weight of your own feeling, your feeling of inadequacy. And I think that's majorly a problem. For the people who dropped out of college, who didn't complete uni, you are still a worthy human being. There is nothing wrong with you. You did what you thought was best. That was your choice. That was your path. It is perfectly fine, unless you make it everyone else's problem. The moment you make your issues everyone else's problems, the moment you make a decision and you can't stand by that decision, well, you have a problem that you now need to face. And that's a you problem again. For successful women in school, when you date down academically, know that you might have to carry a man's insecurity in a lot of interactions. Women tend to not need at all, in any meaningful way, this same kind of coddling. Maybe it is about acculturation and how women are raised, but women tend to not need the kinds of coddling men need when the woman is more successful than them. That is itself a problem. I am, in fact, again, talking about Ramses and Marissa, and I don't want that to be lost. I am talking about Ramses and Marissa, and I think that I need to make some clarification here about what I'm doing in this video. One thing quickly that I must add is I must point out that a lot of this, what I'm doing talking, is going to be speculative, and based on my viewing of a show, Love is Blind, that we all watched and I think we all loved and adored this season. It was messy. I do not know these people, and the depth of analysis that I'm about to do is limited to what we're made available to see, right? It is through the lens of a heavily edited show. I took about 2 courses in psychology in undergrad, so I would also note my limited knowledge here. This masterpiece of a video that I'm creating now is purely for entertainment purposes only, and I am only speaking as an audience member. That is it. That is all. I am merely adding my voice to the chorus of voices speaking about a popular show that people seem to enjoy and want to talk about online. I want to talk about it online, but I only want to talk about one character right now. Just one, Ramses, who thankfully have not gone under the radar. People clocked, what's the phrase? Clocked his tea. People clocked his tea. I will show a lot of restraint because these are people who were thrust into fame without any kind of meaningful preparation. And even while it is their choice, which it truly is, I cannot begin to imagine what they must feel to be scrutinized without any kind of empathy. Under all the memes and the jokes, I think there lies a real human who might be hurting in ways that we have not yet come to understand. To get that kind of fame with that many people talking about you, I don't know what that feels like. And if they should find this video, anyone, Ramses in particular, I want to extend some grace for the human behind the character we saw. And that was an evil, diabolical, disgusting, vile character that we saw. I'm hopeful that that is not the human, but that is him playing up some kind of evil villain for TV, and it is not real. With that, please know, this is me being reasonable. A Scarlet Witch reference. This is me being reasonable. Know, however, that the restraint does not mean sugarcoating my feelings or lying to spare yours. The honesty here does not come from a place of hate, but a deep sense of disappointment. So, without further ado, why do I do it like that? Without further ado, let's begin. I should begin this by saying Ramses and his empathy. Yeah, I think that's a good way to sort of engage with Ramses, because I think Ramses, I think the Rams want us to think of him as an empath. So I believe he has cognitive empathy. That is where his empathy begins and ends from my perspective. We generally actually think of the bad guy as someone who does not see or engages with emotions. A narcissist, we would call them colloquially. These people who are not narcissistic in the way that we think of narcissism generally gets away with doing really horrendous things because they seem like they are aware, they seem to know the language, they seem to care, they seem to be able to articulate emotional turmoil, they seem to be more than the regular kind of guy who is mean, disrespectful, and dismissive. We tend to ignore issues and completely let our guards down when we are in love and the person who we're in love with engages seemingly emotionally. A word of caution. Someone can in fact display empathy without sharing the same feelings on an emotional level. Psychologists call this effective empathy. We'll get more into that in a separate video and why I use that phrase here and not just straight up cognitive empathy, which is very different, and I will break that down momentarily. When a person is aware of what you want and also how you feel, it makes them more powerful in relating to you because they do not feel the same on an emotional level. They are not necessarily controlled in any meaningful way. They're not pushed. They're not animated by their feelings, and they can use your feelings, your wants, your needs against you. Let me bring up a theory that I have about relationship, and I need to be upfront, but I'll break this down later. I see relationships as a sort of negotiation, and we therefore have to introduce some negotiation terms shortly. I won't do that now, but I just need to bring that up quickly so that we can get to the idea that I'm positing right now, which is weaponizing empathy, weaponizing sort of therapist speak. This we've seen in more recent history where men have become privy to what they need to say, even if they don't feel that which they're saying. And I think that is an interesting phenomenon. The right words are said at the right moment, but they seem hollow and insincere. If you're generally a secure person, but constantly feel the need for reassurance on the things that were actually said, because you know something is wrong. This could be a sign of inauthenticity. And to use this to explain yourself, to engage with someone and not fully know why it is, like they said the right thing, they did the right thing, but you don't feel the right way. Effective empathy is what is happening. They are able to use empathy effectively, even if they don't feel it deeply, they can intellectualize it, which we will get to cognitive empathy and break that down a bit more. You're being fed. They're saying what needs to be said, but you never feel full. The words are, again, hollow, empty, and meaningless. Yet you cling to the nothingness that drips out, still starving from eating all that empty calories they do nothing, absolutely nothing, to fill you up, make you understand your role, your position, and how you are in this relationship with them and what they feel about you being in the relationship with them. This came directly from my therapist, and I needed to add that here. The words are meant to manipulate, to paint a picture that has you wherever they need you to be. They understand your feelings, cognitive empathy that is, and they know how to use what you want to further their own goal. Look, I actually have a bet, because I have not done the research here on Ramses' ex, but I have a wager for you. I bet most of Ramses' exes still think of him as a good, emotionally aware guy, even though they never felt safe or fulfilled with him, even though he was draining them. They probably actually, like this is for real, they probably are incapable of pointing to specific wrongs he has done. I actually would like to hear the exes speak up because I doubt they have bad things to say about him. They might have feelings, but they don't have the words for it. Pointing out specific wrongs, that is. I think he made it their decision. And when he chose to do something for himself, he made it about them, helping them, being better for them, moving on for them, divorcing his ex-wife for her. He needed to leave her to help her, forgetting that she is a human being with agency that can make her own decision. It was all for her, right, Ramses? Because there's nothing, let me be clear, there's nothing you've indicated on that show that even suggests barely that you care about anyone's happiness and fulfillment but your own. Marissa's mother was right, but we will get to that in a moment. Let's go back to like sort of more upfront theory. And let's really discuss this. Just know, nothing this man does is to benefit the other person. Ramses is not here to benefit anyone else but himself. It was never about the other person. We caught it on camera. These people are only focused on their needs. And these people, by these people, I mean people like Ramses, regardless of how they spin it, it is never about you. It is never for you. There is no care about your happiness. There's no care about what you've done. All they care about, from my perspective, from what I understand, is themselves, but they will speak in a way to make you think it is about you. Think about every single argument we saw. At the end, whose needs was met? Which of the two, Ramses or Marissa? Who compromised in actuality? Who was bending over for the other? He can frame it as much as he wants. We all saw his manipulation and he cannot hide from that. This was the only reason we saw any glimpse of sadness on the reunion, in my opinion. Because when he walked out feeling absolutely sad and destroyed. The reason I believe is he realized that the public was against him. We all were going to see him for who he was, and he was shook. Thankfully, I think, Ramses was short-sighted and thought he used Marissa up and was ready to move on. He thought he gained everything that he could gain from her before he could truly benefited. I think if they were still together, he could have this bigger, more lovable social media presence, but he can't. And he was short-sighted in that way, and I'm happy for it. This sort of passive aggression is also key here. Ramses never truly says what is on his mind. He speaks in this roundabout way to guilt Marissa into doing what he wanted. He brought up sex, for example. He was not getting enough of it because he's trying to convince us that he really likes sex. She was sick. He does not want to seem like the bad guy after noting it was in fact a big deal. He brings up sex because sex and him not getting enough was a big deal. But he dials it back, right? Saying it wasn't a big deal. He just wants to know if this would keep going on in the future or if there's something he could do. What is wrong? Why is he not? She is sick, mind you. He knows she is sick. She is working. She's going to school. She has mock trial. She's driving like an hour to 2 hours to get home. And he is at home worried about, pause. If it wasn't a big deal, why did he even bring it up? Right? Why were you even bringing it up to have a discussion if it wasn't a big deal? It was a big deal to you. He left that burden on her to figure it out, to find some way to please him when he needed it. Regardless of how sick she was, regardless of how she felt, his needs were not being met. And he was throwing a fit to make sure that she understood that he needed his needs met. A man of principle, right? This kind of manipulation and doublespeak is confusing, I believe, for the other person, trying their best to make things right. Marissa is left questioning herself, not about his aggression, because in truth, he doesn't aggressively state what he needs. Marissa is left to think, how can I help? What can I do? Why is he sad? Not angry, but sad. He's bringing this up. He says it's not a big deal, but I need to do something to please him. Rather than being aggressive, he is asking her how to fix it. How can we find a solution for you to give me what I want? It seems reasonable because of the language being used, but if you actually listen to the words, he was in fact demanding her pleasing him when he felt like it, regardless of what she was going through. Couply, like wrapping that all up in we. These type of men are the absolute worst, and you have to be direct to trap them. Do you think I should be sleeping with you when I am sick? That is a question you should ask. When he answers no, because that is the only correct answer, he knows this, say okay, and then move on. Do not linger on a conversation searching for a compromise. Walk away. You will be the only one compromising when he is bringing up something that you should do when you are sick so he can be pleased. Absolutely don't engage with that conversation. At least that's how I would handle it. I don't deal with passive aggression, so that's how I'm going to deal with a passive aggressive person. Do not do their work for them. Force them to be the bad guy and say what they actually feel. Do not allow them to leave you with the work of figuring out how to help them without them telling you what you want so they can blame you for your decision later that they didn't ask you for. Do not let these people guilt you into doing what they want because they know and won't engage with what they feel. They know it and won't engage with it. A direct ask would make them look like the devil they're trying to hide. It will make them seem exactly what they are, and we, the people, can see it. But in private with no camera, no one gets to see it, so be direct. FYI, I do not know that all of this is conscious. A person used to getting their way and never having to compromise, while also wanting to be a good guy, I believe is fertile ground for this kind of personality to develop unconsciously. I mean, Ramses is in his feminist bag. You don't believe it? Ramses is, in fact, in his feminist bag. He might not be a social justice warrior or an actual feminist in real life, but he knows the language. He fully knows the language, and he uses it to get what he wants. Without the film and social media screaming at them, Marissa might never be able to see the truth, might never be able to see Ramses for who he is. And she, in fact, didn't. Apparently, they were still together after the filming, allegedly. She wrote this after the breakup, and she posted it on her social media after Ramses was getting dragged for using condom, right? Ramses didn't want to use condoms. There was a fight about it. And instead of letting Ramses get dragged, Marissa came on to let us know, and I quote, she says, "I want to clarify something important to me. As I mentioned on the show, whatever. Some parts of the birth control conversation did make it in the scene. Rams may not always get it right, but he constantly tries to approach sensitive conversation with empathy." With empathy. Although his initial comments in the conversation didn't sit well with me, it didn't sit well with anyone. And no one watching that thought, you know what, Ramsey, that's a good point. She should go take pills because you don't like the feeling of condom. She should jack up her own system so that you can have some more pleasure for how many ever minutes you all, whatever. I'll get to that specific conversation later. She go, "We easily reached an understanding after a longer talk off camera. We agreed to continue using natural birth control by tracking my cycle, a method I've relied on for years." Pause. What? What methods you've been relying? Natural method? All right. Rams downloaded the Flow app and synced it with mine to share the responsibility of tracking my fertility window. If I'd set a boundary about protection, he would have respected it. Why? Why you think he would have respected a boundary you set about your body and about birth control? The standard was set. You said you don't want to be on birth control and he could use a condom. He said, I'm not about to use a condom because I don't like how it feels. That conversation was horrid, and we need to get into that conversation. They were back together at this point when she posted this, I think. And I'm not even done with the post. I'll get back to the post. But I think they were back together at this point in my head, and she was running defense for him. No proof of this at all. I'm just saying what I believe, because she expects us to believe that he would have respected her decision on this specific topic where he blatantly let us know he wouldn't use a condom, and he has not shown any respect for her body at any other time during this show. But go off, girl, because you think we are going to believe you that Ramses, who literally don't respect you at all, is going to respect a decision you make about your body because you had to sit him down like a child to explain to him what happens to you every month and why when you're sick you don't want to do it. I mean, let's continue reading her post because ain't nobody got time for that. So she continues, "Just want to make sure that's clear. Be kind and remember to give people space to be imperfect and grow. That's all I'll say on this. Everything else was what it was. Thank you all so much for your kindness and love. It truly means a lot." Girl, I don't know why you think that you need to be defending him. We all saw what we saw. He didn't want to use a condom. That was the line drawn. Anything else was perfectly fine with him because you needed to figure it out. But we'll get to that conversation more specifically. We'll get to what was said at the reunion because they said, oh, we're going to explain it at the reunion. Nothing was explained. But our interpretation was correct. Marissa was just too caught up to see it until the world refused to make her blame herself, be hard on herself. The world refused to let her take the blame for this toxic, degenerate person. To pull this part, the first part of this together, let me just say, and rather summarize, someone having cognitive empathy does not mean they have emotional or compassionate empathy. He can, I believe, understand feelings and motivations. He can engage with them. This is intellectualizing. I believe, again, this is my personal opinion, I believe that he can intellectualize empathy and use the words. This is very different from entering the emotional space to identify with the emotions the other person feels and having compassion for that other person. I will use, actually I would use the military conversation between the Rams. The Ramses nasty work. Between Ramsey and Marissa, I would use that military discussion here, but in truth, there wasn't even an attempt at sort of cognitive empathy there by Ramses, like at all. He didn't even attempt empathy. Empathy is not as natural to him as he wants us to believe. We will get there. Actually, I think... Yeah, that is insane. There was literally no empathy. He was just black and white. We'll get there. I had some more stuff here. Because I just did all of that, let me now attempt to space out the relationship as a negotiation theory. I will drop it sort of later in the video to not do all the theory up front and bore you all to death. Let's directly discuss Ramses now instead of me talking about empathy as a theory separate from how we generally engage with the ideas about empathy for people in our regular life. We're introduced, this is funny, we're introduced to Ramses as he is a feminist, liberal, anti-imperialist modern king. He truly is. Who wants to tear down patriarchy? His image is a perfect mirage of progressive ideals, a modern man who scoffs at traditionalism. Women are equal to men, military bad, and I might be gay. All right. All right, I'm being petty. The last bit is not necessary. The last bit about I might not be gay is absolutely not even necessary. If you don't believe his words, his bohemian homeless aesthetic was there to convince you he did not care to be like other guys. He wasn't like them. He wasn't a manly man. And the 3 dreadlocks or 2, I'm going to say 3, but I think it was 2. The 3 dreadlocks he sported for no reason confirmed that he didn't care about it. I clocked him immediately. No human should ever have to try that hard to show that they don't care. We see you, we know you, you care a lot. You care a lot about our perception of you. Like, why do you have 2 or 3 random locks just hanging there? What was the reason? Cardi, what was the reason? The look, while terrible, the look, while terrible, was intentional. I don't know. Ramses claims he wanted empathy. He likes feelings. He likes the feelings of other people. He just is a feelings type of guy. A guy who understands his emotion, even if the 3 locks hanging from the back of his head told everyone they needed to run in the other direction. He was progressive, a progressive man who understood words. His lack of fashion sense could be ignored for his emotional openness. What am I writing? He spoke women's language and wasn't gay. That's why I'm laughing. I mean, he sold us the I'm not gay by demanding Marissa be intimate with him at least 3 times a day. He was a perfect straight man, right? Like he was a perfect straight. He was in touch with his emotions. He had empathy. He did. He did have empathy, but not all empathy, types of empathy. are created equal. And I will posit, he did have a kind of empathy, as I explained in my opening. This kind of empathy is known more generally as cognitive empathy. Discussed earlier, he understood the emotions. He could engage with them intellectually. Now, do not mistake this. Do not mistake me for saying that he is an intellectual. I'm saying he can intellectualize emotion. Just saying he understood the emotion, but he does not, from my observation, feel them or extend compassion at any moment when his compassion is needed. If his needs weren't met, you were not getting compassion, you were not getting grace, you were not getting empathy. I wish he was paired with Hannah, actually. I said this in one of my live streams. That would have made for some very interesting dialogue. But we move. This is not a diagnosis of any kind. This is just my way of understanding what I was watching, because it seemed familiar from all the courses that I took in uni. It seemed familiar in different conversations I've had with many of my friends about a similar type man. So I am not trying to sort of explain who he is. I don't know who he is. Again, we are talking about someone through a very filtered show. This could all be for show, and none of it could be real. It could be very different from his personality. The first time we saw Ramses, he told us he wanted someone to love him for who he was on the inside. So he wanted someone to love a shallow, self-centered, fake feminist user who can only see himself and no one else. I think he wanted a fan and not a lover. From the way he walked, spoke, even the way he stood, everyone called this poor man gay. As a person who allows people to be who they are until they are ready to come out. Hey, Shawn Mendes. Yeah, what y'all did to that man was so wild. Leave that boy alone. Leave that man alone. Let him figure out his sexuality. I'm talking about Shawn Mendes. I will not engage further on Ramses' sexuality. It is mostly about his thoughts and how he interacts. If he is in fact gay, if that is true, and he's using a woman to cover it up, then we would have a problem. But with no proof, we move, dismissing speculations as just that, speculations. How you doing? And what's up with Wendy? I wonder how Wendy Williams would have engaged with Love is Blind. I wonder how she would have, her man was cheating on her, so who knows? Ramses explained in the pods that he does not believe in roles. A lot of feminists love this idea. I like this idea. Until you realize he does believe in roles. He just does not believe in the patriarchal roles he cannot meet. Let's say the providing bit. Yeah, the providing bit, he has a problem. Whenever Ramses cannot meet an ideal, that's the thing he hates, right? So he is not for patriarchal roles where he cannot meet the standard. So he's not for providing. You know, the part of patriarchy that requires the man to give something to reinforce his role, he doesn't like that part. No, he's willing to tuck that away between the beats of his heart and be provided for, while still remaining as toxic as ever. He truly wants a submissive provider, and he was love bombing, I believe, to get it. Talking about, though he wanted to tuck her away. He said he wanted to tuck her away between the beats of his heart. He wanted to tuck her away between the spaces of the beat of his... I don't know. These poetry writing misogynists are the absolute worst. Stay away from these grand rising my ebony goddess queen type looking nignogs. Like, stay away from them. Grand rising my ebony princess. He never says this, but that's the look he gives. You know, that homeless hobo boho chic. Well, probably take chic out of it. Bunch of non-mogul fronting like you got a job left. Look at y'all, can't get a job, so you're plotting out a rob at. I ain't got a check for y'all, but if I'm a check for y'all, I'm gonna need a check from y'all. I'm thinking you, when my time comes, clicking on billing these. Y'all need to listen to that song. y'all need to get into Nicki Minaj, Nicki the Harajuku Barbie. The song that I was just singing by Nicki Minaj, by the way, this song by Nicki was playing in my head the entirety of the reunion. Watching all those men speak, all I could think about was Nicki Minaj looking A.N. There was not a good man in sight. Yeah. Stepping back from Ramsey for one sentence and then back to Ramsey. The fact that there was no good man on that stage is wild. Let's jump out of those pods and then come back to test this empathy and love he proclaimed and look at one of their major, Marissa and Ramses' major fights. This was about the military. Now, you all can have your own opinions here about the military. Your opinion, unfortunately for this video, does not matter. We're only looking at the context of the show, right? So military service was brought up by the Rams. I'm going to call him the Rams. I like that. Not sure entirely why, when this was already discussed in the pods. But hey, it is healthy to revisit and explain yourself about things that were brought up once it's not huge and it's not a big fight. Like if you're uncomfortable and you moved past something, sure, you can bring it up to discuss it. So the anti-imperialism was on full display. He wasted no time judging her, ignoring her reasons. She brought up poverty. Girl, you had a choice, was his answer. She brought up the fact that she was young and she didn't know what to do. His politics was more important than her feelings, even when she admits that her experience in the military did actually, and in fact, open her eyes and she had to leave. This was not enough for him. Poor stay-at-home dad Ramsey needed to remind Marissa that she was terrible for being in the military, that she had a choice. Regardless of why she went in the military, he didn't care nothing about that. He wanted her to know that she had a choice. Her age, poverty at the time was no excuse. How dare her? Oh, but he loves her. He is understanding. He is willing to have her provide for him a life using the military, because the military gave her, right, Marissa, the life that he now would benefit from by being a stay-at-home dad. But he's just so anti-military. And I'm not saying you can't. By being in America, you're benefiting from the military, right? And you can still critique the military if you want. But it's weird to not even have an ounce of empathy for why. Even if you agree with Ramses, Marissa went out of her way to appease him, to let him know she heard and agreed with most of what he said. She wasn't even looking for him to agree, just for him to be there emotionally. And he couldn't do it. If your convictions are that strong, you should leave. You should have never chosen her when she already expressed to you about her military background, her military service. You had a chance to leave without causing all this chaos and heartbreak, and you chose to invest in her, pretend like you didn't care about her military past, only to bring it up in her face, hang it over her head to remind her that she, the person who is your better on paper, isn't good enough for you. He's absolutely toxic. He is toxic. I'm not even saying he's wrong for his own feelings, but as someone who purports to understand himself and know his values and knows how he feels, and he is that guy because he's so deep and feminist and progressive thinking and anti-imperialist and knows all the therapist speech. He knows all of that, right? The relationship should not have gotten started then if you had such a problem with her military background that you knew about and you knew your own position about this military thing. I don't understand how he gets to wave the deal breakers above her, but never actually leave. That you know about these things before you got into the relationship, and you still ask for her hand in marriage, in her face. Something she cannot change. Now you're pushing that and demanding that she feel bad about it. You want her to feel hate and feel bad about herself, about something that she did, and you want her to admit that to you. And even while she's admitting it, you can't feel anything so badly. He wanted so badly to express why he believes she is wrong. He wanted to humble her in this moment, so much so that he could not extend any kind of grace. Look, I will leave her his need for insecurity and validation, his need to fulfill his insecure ideas about himself and the need for validation. I will leave that for the discussion when the mom was met. We'll go back to the mom for that. I really did like the mom at the first meeting, I have to say this. However, the mother calling Marissa the B word was way out of line. But other than that, I found nothing wrong with how the mom interacted with Ramses. Imagine an insecure man who has never accomplished anything on paper being condescending to you and your accomplishment to make himself feel superior. I wish someone would. I wish he would. You would feel small real quick. Regardless of if I stay or leave, do not speak down to me from the depths of hell where you reside. You absolutely don't have that right to be condescending. I don't have to come down there to remind you who you are. I'm just gonna skip what what I wanted to say. I'm not gonna finish that statement. Ramses is an anti-imperialist. Ain't he a good man? He a good man, Savannah. A good man. Forget your empathy. Forget all of that. He is a good man because he is anti-war and anti the military. But he moved here, though. He lives here now. So his story has to do with a hatred for the U.S. military, as his home country was subject to the American military. I cannot get into my personal views here. However, while I understand and can appreciate his position, it always strikes me as odd when a person desperately tries to cling onto their hate like being in America is to benefit from the sort of global power that America amassed through its sort of imperialism. To be in America is to benefit from its global power and pull. Are you truly anti-imperialist, or does that position make you feel better about how you benefit? You are literally choosing to benefit from American imperialism, and yes, you have a choice in that matter. To be that strongly against it, and I'm not opposed to you being against it, but to be that strongly against it where you can't even have compassion for someone who said the only way they knew how to get out of poverty was to get in the military is absurd. But back to the video. Marissa served in the US military, a fact Ramses is fully aware of when he said he wanted to tuck her between the beats of his heart. He was in love with her, and he knew of her military service. So one would imagine they had moved past this, or past whatever issues he had with the military, right? And if he didn't, that was a him problem, right? She is, after all, who she is, and she cannot go back and change her past. So if you chose to be with her knowing of her military background, you're choosing to be with her knowing of her military background. Unfortunately, I believe she would, if she could, go back and change her past for him to love her, for him to be with her, for him to show some kind of care for her. And that's unfortunately really sad, because someone like him should not have someone like Marissa who is willing to bend backwards in order to please him and shame herself and her past service to make him feel better about his life where he absolutely did nothing, accomplished nothing, gave nothing, went to school for I don't know how long to drop out. Imagine my surprise when they are sitting down and her military service is brought up as a topic of discussion. Marissa tries her best to explain her ignorance, her youth, her poverty. She goes as far as to explain that she did not love what she did and how much she did not know before she went into the military. I feel like that is a far, far reach for her. She is reaching out for him to be there for her emotionally, and he just absolutely does not care at all. And here's the thing, for someone who hates the military like him, you would think he did some research. And if you know anything about the US military, I'm gonna use the word propaganda here, but you know the propaganda machine that fast tracks high school students from impoverished area into the military, like right at graduation, even before kids who don't know what they're doing are signing up for the military, because it is the only way that they can think of to move out of poverty. This is a lot of people's chance in their mind at a normal life, away from everything they know in poverty. For a lot of people, the military is the only way to escape that they can think of. It might not be right, you might not agree with this, but it is their experience in that moment. You can't think they're still wrong while holding space for compassion and sympathy for the choice being made by a literal child. I don't think you need to like it or even care about the system in place here. I don't think you need to care about the lack of support for those facing poverty and the lack of alternative path to success. But as an empath, as a self-proclaimed empath, I expect Ramses to be able to comfort his fiancée who he knew served in the military, and he chose to be with that person. I expect an empath to be empathetic. So empathy does not mean you agree with the action. And I think I need to make that clear again. I've repeated this so many times, but let me do it one more time in the name of Dr. Umar. Empathy does not mean you agree with the action. He could have merely sort of acknowledged the difficulty his fiancée faced when the choice was made. This is an empath time to shine in the midst of conflict. Do your thing, the Rams. The Rams, it's your time to shine. Show us how thoughtful you can be. Show us how thoughtful you can be. Where your fiance is going as far as to talk down about her own experience, her own reality, the mistake she has made in her choice, as she reaches out for you. Take the floor, sir. It is your performance. You're debuting now as a K-pop idol. It is yours, your turn. She needs empathy. You have empathy. Respond to her. No. It's funny because before I get to what he actually said, in the pods, he was talking all this nonsense and how great he is and how feminist he is and how he don't care about masculinity. And I remember Marissa said, "You are not real." She didn't believe he was real. And you know what? She should have believed herself. He was definitely not real. This was his response, by the way, to that heartfelt plea that Marissa gave about the explanation for why she was in the military after she apologized and she said she didn't know she was young. It was her way to escape poverty. He said, and I quote, "No one is putting a gun to your head to do it." This is in reference to her explaining how she ended up in the military and pleading for him to show some compassion for the choice she made that he disagreed with. No one is putting a gun to your head. You chose it. That was his response. This was his response to her trying to explain that she did it to survive. He kept saying, they signed up for it. You signed up for it. No one had a gun to your head. You wanted to do it. You did it. You did it. Leave me alone. You did it. What? When she tells him the kids signing up for the military are generally ignorant and trying their best, they do not always know what they are doing, his response is in complete black and white, right and wrong, context, age, socioeconomic standing, none of that, none of it. None of that mattered to him. He was right and she was wrong. And he did not care about anything else outside of you are wrong and I'm right. Where is the empathy? You can be right, mind you, and the other person be wrong, and you can still show empathy. Where is the empathy, Mr. Empath? The actual lack of care for the other human before you, standing in front of you, sitting in front of you, is frustrating. A person you chose knowing they served in the military is speaking to you and your thinking is just absolute binary. And their empathy, mind you, tends to not work well with binary thinking. Just an FYI for you, Mr. Empath. Now, with all of that said, Marissa would be wrong if she said it has been 15 years since your father passed and that degree still isn't finished. She would be wrong if she expected him to have done more with his life, regardless of his father, right? I will bring this up again because a person who feels so deeply about why context doesn't matter does not get to use context as an excuse for his lack of upward mobility, for his failure, for his inability to be and do better. That's what I need to talk about. The rejection of her articulation of her own emotions and mental state at the time of signing up for the military is actually kind of wild. He is telling her she knew what she was doing. She was wrong, and ignorance is not an excuse. Great job, Ramses. Great, perfect job. Empath of the Year. Yeah, I'm just going to give you the award, girl. Empath of the Year. Look, I am in no way arguing that he has to agree or not speak his mind. And I am definitely not saying he needs to forego his principle. In truth, I am saying he has no actual principles. And therefore, this is, again, moral grandstanding. He needs to humble her. She needs to be wrong, and he needs to be right. The scene with Marissa's mother told me actually everything that I need to know about Ramses. Low self-esteem, unaccomplished, fake sincere. Oh wait, not fake sincere. I'm trying to be nice because, again, if he sees this or anyone sees this, I don't want it to just be dunking on him because I don't think that is generally useful, but it's very difficult not to do. He has no principles, as we will see him disregard his stated feminist principle, progressive principle, to force Marissa to find a way to please him because he does not like condoms and he doesn't want to have children. So we need to talk about how he sets boundaries that are meant to be suggestion, but not really. They are really strict boundaries that he pretends are suggestion, but these boundaries carries the weight of the relationship. But he doesn't leave, he stays. He lets his self-esteem an issue, his insecurities, control whatever he does, and he attempts to manipulate her, and we see this on full display. But the insecurity bit, that comes up very specifically with Marissa's mother. Y'all tried to jump down my throat on this. You all talked about how horrible Marissa's mother was. There was no space for nuance, and the fact that the mother saw right through Ramsey, saw right through the Rams, made y'all, not you all, but some people uncomfortable, and y'all dragged her. Again, Marissa calling her daughter the B word was weird. Marissa's mother made the comment that Marissa and Ramses look alike, look like siblings. And I agree, actually. They are both actually very attractive people. Might be the most attractive couple on the show that season. Season 7, was it? But that is irrelevant, as looks can be deceiving. And in this case, it was definitely looks were definitely deceiving, girl. We got a glimpse into Marissa's childhood and how difficult it was for her. Here, we saw her mother, Marissa's mother, who raised all the children by herself while going back to school, and the kids have all decided college was a part of their future. There is a distrust of men in her life, as she acknowledged, and by she I mean Marissa's mother, how men have disappointed her and her children, their own children. She is rightfully skeptical. Now, I know this is about Ramses, but I do actually want to talk a little bit here. So go with me on this journey. I do wish more women would drop the fairy tale dreamland, dream when relating to men without having to go through the pain required to destroy the image. Anita Baker have been telling us, but here we still are in 2024, and women are hanging on to these fantasies like their lives depended on it. They're hanging on. The desperation for this happy ending makes the reality that much more painful for those who have to experience it, to break away from whatever idea they have about romance. Marissa's mother's story is one that is familiar to a lot of women, particularly those with biracial or black children. A woman who has to be strong enough to carry herself and the children with no help from the father. And if there is help, it's only financial, and it's not a lot per week, per month. Waking up at 4 a.m. to do what she has to, putting herself through school while caring for children. But men have it hard, right? Child support. Am I right, guys? Child support. We need to get rid of child support. I will never forgive them for that. I will never forgive these men for sitting in that barbershop talking about disgusting. Abolish child support. Child support is unconstitutional. That is the bare minute. Ugh. At this point, after painting a vivid picture, mind you, of how tough her life was, raising 4 children by herself, putting herself through school and never being able to depend on a man, she rightfully now knows that her baby girl is not going to go through the same thing. She is going to make sure her baby girl, Marissa's mother, is making sure that Marissa is not going to go through this. So he asks if Ramses can provide, if Ramses went to school. Marissa's mother asks the Rams what he's aspiring to do. Now, she's asking an aspiring stay-at-home dad what his career goals were and what his education was. Ramsey had an answer. He explained, I thought about going back to school. Quote, I thought about going back to... If you know me, you know this answer would have driven me up the wall. This is a non-answer for misdirection. Is this even a goal? Do you plan on going back to school? What is, I think about it. I thought about going back. How is that an answer? How is that an answer to what your plans are? What are you doing? Are you going to school? I thought about... It is absolutely nothing meaningful, nothing you can hold on to, nothing you can hold against him, nothing you can hold him to. This is how Ramses operate. He gives absolutely nothing at all. He makes no argument, he makes no claim, he just says things. And you have to figure out what he means by it. When pressed, he pointed out that he dropped out of college because his father passed away when he was 20. He is now 35 years old. 15 years later, and you have only thought about going back? Why not just say, I dropped out of college? Why not say that? What was all that explaining, talking about, I thought about it? You thought about what? What did you think about? 15 years later, and not a degree in sight. But he has the audacity to be outraged about why Marissa did anything. You had a choice, he told her. A choice to join the military. A choice to do this. No one hold a gun to your head. Okay, since you don't care about anything and any context, let's apply that to you. I don't care nothing about anything. 15 years later, you should have had that degree. How does that feel? He is still doing nothing and aspiring to be provided for by a woman. That is his entire goal, and that is diabolical because he critique her, disparage her, shame her for her upward mobility while he gives nothing. Why are these broke, unaccomplished people always trying to take the moral high ground? Probably because it is the only ground they can take, because on paper they have absolutely nothing to brag about. Ugh, like, how are you condescending? This, for me, by the way, is the height of just disgust. A man that cannot just be who he is. He has to explain himself. She is what he probably wants to be, but will never put in the work to get there and get what she has. And he can. Mind you, I don't think any human being can do better and be better. I think there's just people who don't want to put in the work. Obviously, the system exists, but for him, Ramses specifically, if Marissa can do it, whatever. If Marissa can do it, Ramses can do it too. Now, I'll skip the money portion of this video because the video is too long, and the whole prenup conversation, the mother was jumping way too far ahead, but period. The mother does explain that she is just trying to make sure that Ramses is not just going to rely on her daughter for money and rely on her daughter's law degree. The funny thing is that was exactly his plan, talking about he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. Because he's a feminist and he does not believe in gender roles. He, in fact, wanted to stay at home and have your daughter provide for him. That is exactly what you're trying to figure out what his plans are, and if he can provide. The answer to that is absolutely not. And Marissa was okay with this. Ramses' psychology was also on full display in another section of this meeting when he dropped the news that he was in fact married before. The very next question obviously was, what happened? Why did that marriage end? Why would it be different this time around? How do you know love is enough for this relationship? What are you going to do? What are your goals for this new relationship? I think these are all good questions. I believe. Let's find out how the Rams explained his altruism in leaving his first marriage. Because, girl, one thing this man gonna do is make himself out to be the good guy. He said, and I quote, "I didn't want her to not be happy. So she's a child. She's a child. She could make her own decision. You had to be paternalistic. You had to make the decision for her. Where were you when she wanted to make decisions for herself? Why didn't you allow her to make the decision for herself? Were you making her unhappy? Were you planning to make her unhappy? Did she not know about her own unhappiness? You left because you cared for her? That's why you left your first marriage? Sir, you wanted out of that marriage. Based on everything that you have displayed, there's nothing that I've seen that you have done to show me that you care about anyone besides yourself. So I'm sorry, I find it very hard to believe that your ex-wife was at the top of your mind when you decided you're going to leave to make her happy. We didn't agree on religion anymore, he said. So I had to think about her and what she wanted and her happiness. I had to let her go. Ugh, I was nauseated by this point of him just talking and painting himself out to be this altruistic guy. We don't believe. Thankfully, Marissa's mother was not having this good Samaritan foolishness and called him out on his mess, pointing out that they both made the decision, that is Ramses and his ex-wife. It is not just him caring for her. Though I believe he is the one who left, I don't think it was because he cared so much about his ex-wife. Absolutely not. Again, as we saw in the clips here, it is always about Ramses. It is only about what Ramses wants. Nothing else is taken into consideration. His personality type is so annoying and frustrating because I bet all of his exes, or most of them, believe his framing of events. See, the thing is, he suggests his demands and leave when they aren't met, when he does not get his way. Him never directly owning anything. He's never mean, because you can never point to specific words he said that were mean, but you understood it. You tend to not blame these kinds of people. You tend to take ownership of the decisions they make, and how they force you to do things is never brought to the forefront. The most loving thing I could do, he says, the most loving thing I could do was divorce her. Sir, you got what you wanted and you were done. Talking about religious differences. It was not about loving her. Loving her would mean listening to her and being there for her, seeing what she wanted, not making the decision for her as you have just framed it. Shut up. No one cares. No one believes you. Oh my God, I was just trying my best to make her happy. That's why I left her. I'm pretty sure she even thinks that too. I'm sure he convinced her. He knows generally his feelings are degenerate. This is my belief about him. So he presents them as suggestion, as care, as concerns. That's how he talks, right? The mother's response was just chef's kiss, perfect. She said, you both agreed to divorce. It wasn't you doing it for her, making yourself look like a saint. I love that so much. Yes, mama. His word salad responses are actually, I said nauseating before, and I'll say it again, it's really nauseating. Like, I find myself physically ill listening to him, trying to paint himself to be the good guy in this mirage of just disgusting words. But let us really get into the he is a feminist man with principles discussion, because I do want to get to this. I do. What is that song? SEX, Mama Secret. And that is Don't Go Crazy When You Find Out That Is Baby. Find out SEX. Take a deep breath and think before you let it go. The fact that I just spoke those lyrics and didn't actually sing it is wild and nasty work. All right, Marissa does not want to get on birth control, right? She does not like how it affects her body. I should have like side effects of birth control just flashing across. Maybe due to the millions of side effects from any of these pills. She also wants kids relatively soon and seem okay with having kids sooner. Ramses definitely does not want to have kids right now. With that setup, I have a question for you, and please put it in the comment section. Also remember to like this video. Like this video. I need it to be out there. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that they do not have a child, that they do not get pregnant? One person wants children soon and is okay with having kids if it happens now. The other person does not want children, at least not now. Whose responsibility is it? And if you say both, to prevent the pregnancy, you need to stop this video and listen to the question again, because it is not both. It is both of them don't have that responsibility. Now that we all agree that if you as a man do not want children, you should probably wear protection. Right, Ramses? Right? Ramses doesn't want to do this. In fact, he's arguing about what they are going to do because Marissa does not want to take a drug that has a million side effects, and she is the one who is okay with having a child. He does not want a child, but he does not like condom. He does not like the discomfort of condom. The discomfort is too much. It's too much. So he's okay just completely hijacking her system, forcing her on a pill so that he can feel, quote unquote, pleasure. What he wants is all that matters. A true feminist, ain't he? A man of principle, is he? Ain't he? Right? On the reunion, they said some foolishness about, they found a workaround and they did the natural thing. Look, the natural method is weird and wild. That she's willing to play the game with him already means she is going to give him absolutely anything that he wants. And she's not forcing him to do anything, but it is weird for her to sacrifice her health for his pleasure. The man got up arguing about not getting enough sex also, randomly, when the woman was sick. Marissa is sick and he's over there whining and crying. They also found a workaround with this, I guess. Like, if you're sick and you can't do that and it's that time of the month, apparently they just figured out something around it. When Marissa told him the research on men cheating when they find out their partner is sick, he just said that was something that he had to think about. It was interesting. It was something he had to think about, and it was interesting was his response. No real assurance, mind you, of anything like, hey babe, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. I will never do something like that. I love you and I would take care of you. He presents what he wants, again, as suggestion, but he holds it over her head. Her need for relationship is held over her head. These are firm boundaries he's putting forward each time when we talk about the military, the times they have sex, the kinds of sex they have, all of it. He is making demands with the threat that he will leave if these demands aren't met. That is sick. That is sick. And he doesn't actually leave, and that's the problem, until he does. It is sick because a lot of the things we know, he had to have known in the past before he went into this relationship. Others, like, I don't know, the monthly sex thing is a generally natural thing, yet he presents them as if he didn't know about the issues. And now she needs to compromise on them, or he might walk away. The man is sick. How are you going to have her compromise on things that you knew were there before you went into the relationship? It is at this point that I have to explain my relationship theory, which is that relationship is just a big negotiation. It is a constant stream of push and pull, of compromise relationships, of wins and loss, of trying. In my humble opinion, the relationships that work the best are where both parties are engaged, trying to make it beneficial for the people, all the people involved. The ones where individuals seek to widen the pie, make the pie bigger, rather than selfishly taking as much as they can get away with taking. If being single is not a good alternative to you, or you don't believe that you can find someone else, someone better. Think of Beyonce's song Irreplaceable, even though we know Beyonce didn't leave Jay-Z. Anyway, whatever. If we're thinking about relationships this way, it is to consider that you have a partner. Your partner is the best alternative to negotiation, right? Best alternative to negotiation. That's how we consider it. If the negotiation fails or if you don't like what is happening in the negotiation, it is the alternative to continuing and going somewhere else. Negotiating means that you don't necessarily need that which you're negotiating for, but you want it, and you can, in fact, walk away. And this cannot just be something you think about or something you just say. It's something that you have to enforce. Know that you are okay and that being single is okay, or at least not my favorite thing, but that you can find someone else. Without this, your desperation makes the environment ripe for those around you to use you, abuse you, and then discard you. If you don't have a strong enough walkaway point, it doesn't work usually in your favor. Before you even think of entering a negotiation, use the word negotiation for relationship. I think they're very similar. It is crucial to clearly identify your walkaway point and do not go back on this. You have to be able to do this in a negotiation setting. And I extend this again to the context of a relationship. This is necessary so you can make informed decision about when to compromise or when to leave the negotiation, i.e. the relationship. Do not go in to a negotiation or relationship without your clear walkaway point. I'm calling this BATNA, best alternative to a negotiation agreement. Even if you do not let anyone know you have a walkaway point, please, you absolutely have to have one. In a negotiation, you absolutely have to have one. And it is the same thing for a relationship. Do not sit there, pray to God, fasting for 60 days worldwide so that your cheating man can come home. God, fix my marriage. Ew. With this knowledge and ability to enforce your walkaway point, you are left with a leverage. If you don't have it, you are left without leverage. A man like Ramses can hang the relationship over your head if you don't have a walkaway point, forcing you to do whatever he wants. He will leave if you don't. He has his BATNA. It is whatever he wants it to be, whenever he wants it to be, because he can walk away. Why don't you have yours? Your walkaway point gives you leverage in a negotiation pool. And I would argue the same again for a relationship. If you can stand firm on the terms that are important to you, if you cannot be pressured, you are safe. If you can be pressured in a negotiation, those things that are critical to you will go through the window. You actually do have to stand firm on these. You are no longer negotiating if you bend on everything critical to you. You are being dominated and used. There is a lot more negotiation issues and skills here, but I think you get the picture. And I do not want to convolute this into a negotiation class. I don't want to make this into a negotiation seminar. Ramses, for me, from my perspective, is the type of person you have to reinforce your boundaries repeatedly with. And he is the type to walk away. He does not know how to compromise, and he may be willing to work on himself in the past, but I doubt that will happen. I think he will go find whoever wants to play his reindeer games, and I feel bad for that person. I think it's best he is left to find his right person, the person who loves to bend. Again, I feel bad for this person, but there are people who are willing to try and bend and bend and bend, and they appreciate the bending. I don't know, girl, but that is wild. Look, his newfound fame makes it probably even more difficult for him to do the kind of introspection he needs to do to grow and be a better person. He can just go find someone else willing to do it as soon as someone he's with decide they are not doing it. Whatever it is, I have really actually reworked this entire script so that I don't have to make it so Ramsey focused, even though we are still talking about Ramsey, and we can talk more generally about bigger ideas. However, to conclude, I will bring him back in this. Because here's the thing that Ramsey wants. Ramsey wants Marissa to submit. He wants her to agree with him, but feels like it is her decision. It is her choice. He does not want to be accountable for making her do anything. So he suggests it, demand it in the suggestion, and say he will walk away if he doesn't get it, but he's not demanding it. Right? This is cowardly. This is the coward approach. Demand it and disturbingly acknowledge that you really want it or you're leaving without ever trying to take accountability for it. The thing is, this man kept assuring this woman over and over and over up until the very last minute when he decided to pull the plug that everything was okay until he decided to leave. He reassured her that they were good, and so she was blindsided. I'm pretty sure, again, his ex-wife and all of them, people that he dated, probably still think that he's a good person. He left by saying, oh, our vibe are off, your vibe is off, and we can't coexist. His incoherent babble is used to provide cover for the truth. He was never going to marry her. He did not want to. He knew it, but he wanted to be on the show. He wanted to sleep with her, and he got all of that and more. So now he was ready to go. Look, in the words of Malcolm X, at least when it comes to a wolf, and I'm paraphrasing to apply it here to Ramses, when it comes to a wolf, you see it coming, you can prepare, you can run. It is harder for the wolf to get you unless they go after you with full force. For the uninitiated, the fox, however, seems safe, friendly even. The prey willingly gives herself to it, without knowing the end result is the same for both the fox and the wolf when you're the prey. You just helped one do the unaliving easier. I have more to say, but I will end it here. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. And I'm ending it there because the deep dive I want to do doesn't come close to this video, but this video is enough. It is enough because I don't want to psychoanalyze someone in the way that I'm thinking about doing it. So I'm going to move on. Please know that Marissa standing up to Nick but cannot stand up to her own man gives me the absolute ick. So you had all that fire and passion for someone else's man, but yours just get to run amok. Girl, please. And I don't dislike Marissa, I really like her, but her going after Nick, which drag Nick. Nick should be dragged. And the fact that all the men sat around and let Nick be degenerate and defended him, all of these men, even the one y'all think is good, all right, all of them were trash. And so I just find it weird. Again, I'm concluding. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you again later. Let me know if you guys like these videos. I am now currently working on the documentary for Megan Thee Stallion, and I will have that out hopefully soon. I'll have that out hopefully soon, but it has been a long, long ride. So anyway, have a wonderful time. Bye.